Welcome to Insightful Journeys, a podcast where we explore the lives and experiences of individuals who are making a meaningful impact in the world. Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with Ntando Mkhencele, a renowned public health expert with over 20 years of experience in HIV and AIDS response. Ntando's journey is a testament to her dedication, resilience, and passion for improving the lives of others. From her early days as a nurse to her current work as a technical expert with UNAIDS, Ntando has been at the forefront of efforts to address the HIV/AIDS epidemic, particularly in South Africa. Through her work, Ntando has demonstrated a deep commitment to community-led responses to HIV/AIDS and has worked tirelessly to support the development of sustainable, effective, and inclusive health systems. In our conversation today, we delve into Ntando's journey, exploring her experiences, insights, and perspectives on public health, HIV/AIDS response, and community development. We'll also discuss her work with UNAIDS, Men on a Mission, and other initiatives that are making a meaningful impact in the lives of young people and communities. So let's begin our insightful journey with Ntando Mkhencele. Ntando, welcome to Insightful Journeys.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ngesi. It's a pleasure to be here.
And thank you very much for making time. Ntando, can you tell us about your early life and challenges you faced growing up in impoverished conditions?
Well, a very warm greetings to our viewers. And let me start by saying congratulations once again to Ken R on the 9 years and looking forward to the 10th year anniversary next year. I'm Ntando Mkhencele. I grew up in Duncan Village. I'm sure many of us know in East London, there's a place called Duncan Village. Later on, I was living in Snarpark. The place well known as Inyobeni. That's where I wrote my matric, living in a shack there. I usually tell that story to young people to motivate them that it doesn't matter where you are currently, but you can dream and your dreams are valid and you can get somewhere in life. So my early childhood years, I wish I could share happy memories, but when I try to think about it, there's not really much that come to mind. What comes to mind is really a very chaotic environment of drinking and fighting, from my parents, my aunts, my grandmother, everyone. And I think particularly one of my saddest memories was when my mom was stabbed by my father. I was only 8 years old and she was stabbed. It was only the three of us in the room. So generally, it's not really a nice childhood to reflect on. However, having said that, I think, our parents do the best they can under the circumstances. They raised me, they provided well for me. I believe I'm here I am today, particularly because of my grandmother, because my mother had me while she was still at school, and my grandmother had to be the one from neighbors up to, milk and everything. So I'm forever grateful to Mam Khenebe for that. And to my mother, Umaleta, I believe she did the best she could under very difficult circumstances. And here I am today.
Yeah, and what is interesting is that you grew up in that type of an environment where only what was modeled to you was alcoholism and fights. And we know that young people, they tend to pick up to those things and they follow that kind of a trait. Yeah. What is it that, held you back on not actually following that as well?
I think if I were to put it, I believe in life there are people who are just chosen. You're just chosen to be the trendsetter. You're just chosen to change the status quo, in your environment. And I believe in my family. That's me. Because if you look at it, I was the first for everything, the first to graduate, the first to have a white wedding, the first of many firsts, the first to own a car, the first. So even though I was growing up in that environment, I always had this thing in me, this internal motivation to say, you know what, you can be something. Kisto, I'll never forget, I would dream of the houses I would live in, even though I had never seen them. I remember very well, because remember I said I was in a shack most of my life. But I would dream of a house that I would live in. I'll dream of a car that I'll be driving. When I had never seen it, but it was just in my mind. I'll be studying and I'll put the pen down and I'll just be dreaming. And I remember the first time I got out of our environment, Snarpak or Dangen village, and we visited somewhere here in Naon Valley. We're going to play netball, and we slept in my teacher's house. And I remember thinking, these are the houses I've been dreaming about as we're driving through the neighborhood, And later on, as fate would have it, one day I'm at Spa in Naon Valley. I meet my teacher. Apparently, I bought a house exactly like two streets behind her house. So the power of a dream, when you dream it and you can see it, God is faithful to make it happen.
Wow, God is faithful to make it happen. And what are some of the most significant obstacles you faced in your life, and how did you overcome them? Because people now are hearing you saying, eventually I bought a house and all that. They don't know the in-betweens.
Yeah. I think the most significant challenges faced, and I don't think I'm anything special, I think this is faced by many black children growing up in South Africa, is poverty.
Yeah.
I believe poverty is a curse.
It is a curse.
Poverty is a curse. Just growing up in that, knowing that you lack and there are things you lack in and there are things you wish you could have and you are not able to have, which I think most of us grow up in those environments. So there's something that it does. Either it breaks you or it builds you to want a different story for your life and for your children. And I think for me, it just built that thing in me that I needed to change the story because I couldn't let my children go through the same issues that I had gone through in terms of, being poor, because it's really not a nice experience. Yeah, I think, and then obviously we grow up in the midst of all those challenges. I think for me, my other challenge, which I longed for, was a closer relationship with my mom. I think because she was broken with her own things, she couldn't be that mother that I hoped for at the time. She was often, if she was not drunk, she was quiet, and we never had that bond, that relationship. And I think because of those things, I think the things you were longing for as a child, there's a statement that says, be the parent that you wanted your parents to be. So that is what has sort of driven me to equip myself more even around parenting and parenting issues, because I've been longing for that close relationship. And I can gladly say, by God's grace, I've managed to achieve that. One of my greatest achievements in life, in all of the things that you would have listed. But the one thing I'm very proud of is that I know I'm a good mother. And I know that my children can run to me and come to me and we can talk about anything. That's how close we are.
Wow. Talking about your mother, how did your mother's influence shape your perspective on life and resilience? Yeah,
so my mom was a single mother. As I said, she had me while she was still at school. Very intelligent lady. I think I took all the brains from her. Very beautiful as well. I think I took that from her as well, even if I have to say so myself. Very quiet spirit. Unlike me, I'm more of an extrovert. She was a beautiful soul. But as I say, I think she was just generally troubled, and she tried her best, but couldn't. I would never hear words like "I love you" or "I'm proud of you" in all my achievements. And I used to be an achiever, which is another side effect of growing up in a home where love is conditional, where it's performance-based. You have to perform in order to get attention and recognition. So you end up being an achiever, because if you achieve, then you are celebrated, and then there's attention on you. One of the memories I have is when I say, Gogo Kisto Sasa Sebenzo number 1, no number 2. So end of the year, I would usually be number 1, and then a chicken would be slaughtered. Remember, we're poor, so a chicken was a big thing. Slaughtered, but out of that chicken, because it must be shared among 12 people in the same household, I'll then get a leg that day, and it's called in my name, and I would feel like, like they are really celebrating me. But the downside of that, next year, end of the year, if I happen to be number 2, there's no slaughter, there's no chicken. In fact, my grandmother would ask me, number 1. And you know what that does, and it creates a perspective of, in life you have to be number 1, and there's no room for anything less.
Yeah.
It creates a perfectionist spirit in you, which can really make or break you sometimes, because it works for you, but sometimes it works against you, because you need for everything to be perfect. So I think my mom, in answering your question, I believe she did great. I mean, I went to school, she took me to school and all those things like that. But in terms of connection, it was not there. And that's what propelled me for my passion for parenting and for me to want to be a better parent or a better mother to my kids.
Yeah, and then you transitioned from that environment, and you passed your grade 12. You went to tertiary institution, and how was life there, and how did you view things when you were on that path?
All right, so I passed my matric at 17, and then I had applied to go for nursing, which was another thing I did by myself. I think I've always been matured at an early age. Yeah. My mother didn't even know that I'd applied for nursing. In fact, she didn't want me to be a nurse because she was also a nurse. So I guess parents have this thing that they wish something better for their kids. Maybe she wanted me to be a doctor. But I wish I can wake her up now and say I'm actually something even better than a doctor right now anyway. But anyway, so I applied by myself. I forged her signature because she didn't want me to go there, and I got in. So she was surprised when I was accepted. And the reason I applied, I forced, and applied, was because I knew that she didn't have money. She didn't keep money for me to go to tertiary. I had applied to tertiary institutions. I wanted to do law. Law was my first choice, and I was accepted. But I didn't even have money for registration. So luckily, I applied for nursing as well. So in nursing, you didn't have to pay anything. You just go and you get a stipend. So I was earning a salary at the age of 17. And that's when I started building at home and renovating my grandmother's house, blah, 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 in all those years before I got married. In nursing school, that's also where I met my husband of 20 years, Utabo. And we fell in love. It was love at first sight. And we came from similar backgrounds in terms of the brokenness from home. So two people came together that were longing for a family and to make a family work. And we had the most beautiful years, in our marriage, raising our kids and all that. So I think for me, that's what I would say in answering your question, that we, in nursing school life, I was, for the first time, remember, I'm coming from a very strict, so my mother, when she was drunk, she's drunk, and then when she's sober, she's extremely strict. So it was always a very confusing up and down environment. So coming from that environment and then being on your own at 17, living in nurse's home, suddenly you have all the freedom, and like all young people would go out clubbing and all these things. But I've always had it in me that you are here to learn, you must balance. So luckily we always wrote our test on Friday. So Friday we write a test, weekend is Ure, and then Sunday back at nursing college, and then the whole week it's studying. And and that's just sort of how it went on. It was great.
And then Ntando, you met this guy with similar scripts, and you gave birth to 3 beautiful children. Without having had someone modeling parenthood to you. And your kids bakhula nje ngendlela esibabonayo sonke eyiyo. What kind of an intervention eyangenelelayo yaninika the wisdom yokuthi nikhulisa abantwana?
I think first and foremost, I just want to thank my husband. May his soul rest in peace. I think God, because he knew what was lacking, he gave me a partner that was able to be a partner and a present father. I never even had that thing. New wives, when they give birth, usually they go to their mother's household. They are there for 3 months, and the mother is showing them how to take care of the baby. I never had that. My mother didn't even visit us, so it was just me and my husband and the newborn baby. But between the two of us, we always figured it out, and we partnered and we worked together. And also during that time, I had this thing in me that I wanted to learn. I was hungry to learn what is motherhood, what is parenting. Because I knew what I did not want to be, in terms of I didn't want to be a mother like my mom. But I didn't know how a mom should be at the same time. So I had to teach being very intentional. I think the key word is being intentional. I had to be intentional in learning what is parenting, how do you do things. I mean, before Nama, I used to do all these things, shout, beat the kid, because that's what I knew. But the more I learned, the more I had more constructive ways of how to raise them, how to communicate, how to discipline, and all those things. And also supporting my husband as well to be a better father. And from those engagements, he ended up starting an organization, Men on a Mission, which was very passionate on parenting and on fatherhood. It started from those humble beginnings of us at home, learning and teaching ourselves. And from whatever I was learning, I'll be teaching him as well that, here they say, as a father, if you can do this. And then he started also internalizing that, and it started improving even his relationship with his kids. And by God's grace, really, they've turned out well. And having said that, it's just to say, I always believe Kistonda Bandwana is by grace, purely. Well, even marriage for that matter, all things in life are grace. You can try and be the best mom, and all the techniques and what you learn, but it still takes grace whether they turn out. There are kids who are coming from beautiful, perfect homes, in inverted commas, and they still turn out, in the opposite direction.
Else,
While there are kids like myself who grew up in very dysfunctional homes, and we can still say generally we are okay, We may not be perfect, but at least we turned out okay. So I think more than anything, raising kids is about grace, and it's about understanding that kids, we are stewards of kids. Kids are given to us by God, and God being God, He knows the purpose He has put in those kids. So He'll put them with the right parents and equip those parents with how to nurture them towards, their destiny.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get back to that part of raising kids. But now that you are now at tertiary, can you tell us what is it that sparked your interest in public health, particularly HIV and AIDS response?
Beautiful. So I studied nursing, and then when I qualified, I worked at a health center here in East London, Dangan Village Day Hospital. So back then in 2004, we still had not had ARVs in the public sector, but HIV was there. So, but in the early 2000s, it was only given to pregnant women, not the general population. People still had to buy it from the private sector. And we remember those years, people were dying like everybody, every weekend there would be a funeral. So then I joined this health center. And then there was this corner. Back then, it used to be a particular corner that is seeing HIV people or HIV positive people. And I was always interested in, I want to work in that corner. And they'll be like, no, I was still very, I finished at 21. So, for your pangelapa. And to make it worse, then I was married, and then I was pregnant. Then there were excuses was, no, but you are pregnant, you can't be working there. And I wondered, but why can't I work there? But luckily one day an opportunity came. They were looking for my sister in charge to attend a training, and she was not there. And I said, it was an HIV training. I said, can I attend it? So I attended. And when I came back from that 2 weeks training, the first time that I'm going to that corner. So for me, I always just been, I guess I've always had this thing of people that are marginalized or that are in a particular state. I just, I just have a heart to be there and to just care for them. So I went and worked there, and it was the beautiful years of my life, because back then we started having ARVs in the public system. Then you will get people that are very sick, that are brought to a health facility, by wheelchair, by thin, you can't even put up a drip. You start them on treatment. Within 2 weeks, within a month, they're like, sister, so it used to be in all my and I mean, I think I've done well in my career to be working for the United Nations today, but in all my years of success, those days are the ones that speak to my heart more than anything else. Seeing someone that is sick and dying, you put them on treatment, they feel better, they come back, they go back to work, and they are healthy again.
Wow, that's fulfilling. And how did then education become a source of empowerment for you, and what role did it play in shaping the person who you are, in your future in particular?
Yeah, I always say if you are not coming from a wealthy family where kukimalende, your generations, education for me is your only ticket out of poverty. That's my belief.
Indeed.
So from a young age, I knew that I needed education for it to get me out of poverty. So right from primary, high school, I was always focused that I need education in whatever that I was doing. And indeed, God being faithful, I managed to do that, and I motivate other young people as well with the same, to say, look, no matter what you do, just go to school. even if you don't have shoes, even if you don't. And I think later on in life, I also, because I went in here in Dangit Village in my Sake primary, that's where I did my primary school. There were other poor kids like me. But later on in life, that's one of the missions we went back to with my husband to give uniforms and shoes and everything. Because you know the pain of going to school without the resources like shoes and so on. It's even worse back in the days, you would even be beaten for not wearing a school jersey, but ayikho emva, your parents can't afford to buy it, you know. So I always tell young people, education is your key. Make sacrifices today, because I know young people today, they want to have fun and groove, but make sacrifices today so that you're going to have options and choices for the rest of your life, because there's nothing worse than not having choices and options in life. Like to my daughter, and did you know, the lady that works at Spa, she sees people coming here, they are paying, I'm sure she has dreams of aphume kwa Spa and go and work somewhere else. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Spa, I'm just making an example. But because Akana has options, Akwa education, you know, with us, when we have options, you can decide, but I'm resigning here today, I'm going to apply there and go there tomorrow. But without education, you have very limited options. So I tell young people, education is about having options later in life.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to what I always tell the kids, that choose true pleasure over false pleasure, because true pleasure, you suffer now and enjoy later.
For the rest of
but
your
if
life.
you choose false one, you will seem like you are enjoying now, and then you will
suffer
suffer
for the rest of
you
your
see.
life.
Yeah. And now, Ntando, with over 15 years of experience in public health, can you share with us, you know, some of the most significant challenges you've faced implementing these programs, the HIV?
I think with HIV particularly, it's just ignorance. If you were to know, because, for example, now statistics tell us that we have about 8 million people living with HIV in our country. And just over 500,000 of them are on treatment. So we have a gap of about more than 200. Just over 5 million of them are on treatment. We have a gap of about 2 million, close to 2 million people that are not on treatment. But the main thing is that we keep on having new infections every day.
And they are recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we use model and estimate, so they are able to tell us that in 1 year we've had more than 150,000 new infections in South Africa, for example. Whilst we have condoms, while people are being taught that use a condom, but we have the issue of ignorance. I think people just think that it won't happen to me. And what is particularly said is that young people are mostly affected. The age group 15 to 24, particularly young girls, are the ones who fall prey in terms of they are the highest number in terms of new infections to HIV. And when you look at that, it's intergenerational sex. It's people that are 10 years, 8 years, 10 years older than them that are infecting them. So there's a sense of people not listening to prevention messages, not using a condom, or if they use it, they'll use it first time, second time, they think without having tested the person. They also think you can look at a person and tell that they are positive or not. So there are all that ignorance and stereotypes that are delaying us in terms of the progress that we would like to see. But generally, I think as a country, we've also done well, at least the people that are positive, even now with all this chaos happening, which I'm not going to get into, but at least our government buys our own ARVs, so our people will still have access to treatment, you know. But it's just that even when they have access to treatment, then they don't take their treatment. Adherence is another problem that we are having. So I'm just mentioning some of the few challenges that we are having in terms of public health, but HIV response in particular is behavior more than anything.
Wow. We're still chatting to Ntando Mkhencele, her insightful journey, and I want to believe that it is insightful indeed. Now, as someone who has worked with UNAIDS, can you share with us your perspective on the global response to HIV and AIDS and what you see as the most pressing challenges and opportunities?
I think it's building on what I've just said already. So UNAIDS is a global organization that is not just in South Africa, it's in all countries, and it's responsible specifically for HIV response. And now, as we know, with what's happening with funding in America and so on, it's also under pressure right now in terms of funding, because we have many projects that we do even at community level, because now we the people that we need, the gaps that we're having in treatment, the people that we need to test and put on treatment, they are in our communities. And so we need community-led initiatives to find those people and put them on treatment. However, with the reduction in things like funding, we are not able to reach out, and we are also concerned that this crisis we are having currently is going to even undermine all the gains that we have made, all the progress that has been made in terms of HIV response. So I think in answering you, the biggest challenge is funding. But as they say, with any crisis, there's always opportunity for other things. I think it's also a time where our government should be taking more in terms of owning the program and putting more resources into those programs to cover up for the gap that was being funded by PEPFAR.
Okay. Now let's come to you now and the kind of work that you are doing for community development initiatives. I heard you mentioning Men on a Mission. And when I look back, when that thing came to existence, you were very instrumental in advising and supporting your late husband.
Yes, so Men on a Mission is an organization that was founded in 2013 with my husband and with me, of course, supporting him from behind the scenes, setting up the board, training the board, writing the vision, mission, and all those things, which particularly was focused on, let me not say was, still is, because it still continues even though he's no more, focused on 3 pillars, which is fatherhood, manhood, and spousehood, and then the area where I think my husband particularly excelled in was the fatherhood era and grooming young people. As we know that we have a problem in South Africa, more than 60% of households are led by women. The fathers are not there. So we have young people then that grow up without having role models of fathers or men. So they generally don't know how to behave as men. And the pain of those absent fathers, we see it in behavior manifesting in these young men, whether it's drugs, whether they go to prison because they've committed a crime or things like that. So what then my husband was doing was to mentor these young men, be the role model that they wanted to see, give them hope, give them dreams again, help them to dream and see that it's possible that they can live their life. So Men on a Mission mainly was that. And then additional to that, they also had a school of manhood, which they still do, which also does initiation. As we know that also in the Eastern Cape, we have a big problem of our initiates dying while they are in the bush. So it's a safe environment where young people can go through the circumcision and initiation period in a safe manner. There are doctors there and all those things. But besides that, I'm also a life coach by training, and I'm very big on coaching and mentoring young girls. Particularly my passion was with young girls and women. And mainly helping them to develop to be the best, that they can be as girls and as women. And we've done mentoring. I remember we used to go to Duncan Village in the squatter camps, gather young girls, empower them and impact, because it takes people to see that it's possible for them to want to aspire to be what they want to see. The problem we have in our locations is that there are no role models that young people can look up to. The only role models that are there, if we are bad, then young people look at you, you look up to for that. So there was that as well. We did a lot of community as well, community projects, just giving to communities, but also through radio. I was at KNR at some point, all of those things. I was at Link at some point, contributing to the betterment of society. And also we did a lot of, family enrichment programs, because families, as I said, that we were 2 people that needed family. So it was one of our passions. We did a lot of family enrichment programs, marriage counseling seminars and all those things. And my particular interest as well, parenting. I did a lot of parenting trainings, workshops, and so on. So all of those things contributing to how do we make, better human beings, better families, which is why I want to touch to via this. And then that became that sort of became our identity. It became my identity as well. I remember while I was at Link FM, I even won an award, Africa Award for Focus on the Family, because I was doing a show on parenting. So when you spoke family and me, that was like the same thing. Or family and me and my husband, that was like the same thing. Which is why for me it was very difficult and sad when my own family broke, my own marriage broke, which is what I will not get into today. Maybe it's a topic for another day, you know, other insights for another day, maybe to look at how can these particular things be prevented, or how can we do these things better. Because I believe the Bible says, "Abantu bayatshabalala ngenxa yosolulwazi." So sometimes because we lack certain things in certain areas, we end up, you know, to destinations that we did not aspire to end up to. So for me, if I can just mention one thing that has been particularly difficult for me in my life, is the one area that I excelled in terms of I've helped so many families thrive and be the best they can be, is also the one area that I failed in at some point.
Wow. Well, it's part of Insightful Journeys 2.0. We will talk about it. I want us to get into your faith.
Sure.
You and your faith. You've spoken publicly about the importance of faith in your life. Can you share with us how your faith has helped you navigate through these challenges in life?
I often say you have to believe in something, Kisto. Like, if you don't believe in God, believe in whatever, but believe in something. There is no way you can survive without believing in something. Because when life happens, what holds you together is that belief. You know, you are held together by what you know, even before something happens. Like that, you are held together, Kisto, by scriptures. But figure city scripture. And we know, Romans 8:28, we know that all things work together for good for those who love the Lord. And you know, but Jeremiah 29 verse 11, I know the plans I have for you. So even if there's disaster, whatever is happening, you are held together by what you believe in and by holding on to what you know, despite what you are seeing right now in front of you. So my faith has really played a very pivotal role in my life. From a young age, my grandmother used to take me to church. She will take me to church. I think that's where I was first introduced to church. And I think around 12 years, I then began my own journey. I used to go at Peace Chapel assemblies alone by myself, because I can't get and then from then for myself. So I then went onto this journey of me being a born again Christian, and God being God, He brought me a husband of faith. That really helped a lot in terms of cementing that relationship with God. Because sometimes it's also a bit difficult to relate to God. I used to say that I can relate to God as many things. I can relate to God as a provider. I can relate to God as a strong tower and all those things. But I could never relate to God as a father. Because I didn't have a father, so I didn't have the understanding how a father is supposed to be relating. So then I was not able to go to God and ask for things or cry for things like I would do to my father had I had a father. So when I married my husband and he began to demonstrate fatherhood to my children, and I watched that, it also impacted me as well in terms of understanding God as a loving father that loves us unconditionally, that we can always run to no matter how much life gets messed up or how much we mess it up, by the way, sometimes. So I think faith helps us then. It has helped me to remain grounded no matter what is happening around me. Whether I pray today or I don't pray, or I read the Bible or I go to church or I don't go to church, but that I know what I know. It's what keeps me going and what has kept me. By God's grace, I believe it's grace. You know, the other time I was driving towards the airport in Joburg, and there was a big poster saying, "Grace is a person." And I called Oletu. I said, "Oletu, this poster is just ministering to me. You know, these big billboards. Grace is a person." And I began to unpack that. What does grace is a person mean? And then they quoted 1 John. You know, 1 John in the beginning was the Word, and the Word. And then, you know, they're talking about Jesus. In fact, grace is Jesus. If we were to sum up Jesus in one word and say, who is Jesus? What are the names of Jesus? Jesus is grace. He's the one guy who says, even if I'm here, you can always come back. In fact, just come back to me.
Wow. come unto me.
Yeah.
All right, and Ntando, you've been mentioning how your husband supported you and modeling fatherhood to your kids also impacted you. And how did you cope now with the loss of your husband, and what role did your faith play in your grieving process?
Yeah, so my grieving process was very complicated in a manner that I was divorced and then I was widowed. They happened interchangeably. It's a very confusing thing to many things.
Yeah.
So as I've mentioned that our marriage went through a period of breakdown and which ended in divorce. However, because we had always been good friends, I met my husband when I was 17. So he's basically my adult friend. And I think I was his only friend as well. So there was always that thing in my heart that we must be there for each other. It doesn't mean because love has ended or whatever has ended that as Savan, So we went through, we divorced, and then after that he was then diagnosed with cancer, colon cancer, and he got ill and he had to go through chemotherapy and all of those things. So obviously I took him in, because he had no one to take care of him. I took him into my house. I took care of him, which was very confusing, I guess, to people that are watching. Why are you? And I felt like they wouldn't understand, they would never understand. And anyway, for me, I'm that person anyway. I would have done that even for a stranger, for that matter. How much more the father of my children? And because my children are still young, I had this thing that if they were older, they will be taking care of their father. So all I'm doing now is helping my children as well. I'm doing what they would wish to do, but they can't do because they are young. So we had the most beautiful, I think that time also God allowed, for restoration and to talk and to be able to, just to show compassion and care to each other until his passing. So unfortunately, the cancer progressed. It even developed to the brain and spread to all parts of the body. I think one of the hardest things in life is exactly that, watching someone that used to be so strong. And I mean, my husband was a healthy eater. He would jog. He was very fit. Watching that person, his body just wasting away in front of you, to the point that you don't even want to talk about it, like it was bad. But also more than that, watching my kids having to watch their father go through that. It was very difficult. I remember my daughter even said, because he was in so much pain. You couldn't even touch him anyway by that time. But also what I was most concerned about is that abantwana that were born besazi utata wabethanda uThixo. I don't think there's anyone who loves God more than my husband. Wayemthanda uThabo uThixo. And I would like, these kids have always witnessed their father loving God. Everything was always about God. Even in his dying stage, even in his bed, his deathbed, he would say, God is in control. God is in control, I think now at point I would be the wife of Job, like, blah, blah, blah. But he was always like Job, like God is in control. And so the other thing I feared was that my kids, won't this affect their faith in God, to say, if how can our father suffer like this, that has served God in this manner? And I think to some extent it did happen, because I remember a few months after he had then passed on, I visited my son in Durban just to check on him, because when all this is happening, he's in boarding school. So I would often go and just sit with him, how are you doing? And he did say, Mama, I haven't even been able to pray because I don't understand, So it hasn't been an easy journey. But then again, coming back to scripture, what helped him, my son, even in that, I remember a year or two ago, he got injured in rugby. And he said to me, Mama, I was the captain. When he was injured, he was the captain of the team. Then I remember him saying to me, now that I'm on the bench, I'm injured, because he couldn't play the whole year. He said, now, Mama, the sad part is that when I was the captain, everybody would greet me, even teachers from other schools, the coaches, hi, Inati. But now it's like they don't even know me. And then I had to educate him. It was never about you, it was the position that you held, And then he said something powerful, though, that, Mama, I think I was going through a depression that time, but what helped him was a scripture in Matthew. The scripture said, you may not understand what I'm doing now, but later you'll understand. He says that's the scripture that took him out of that depressed state that was creeping in, because it's out there in Durban, we're in Joburg. So coming back to a thing you were saying earlier on, faith, that's when it comes useful, when it's able to speak to your child in your absence and comfort your child.
Yeah.
Hence, I always encourage parents, teach them about God, because there's a time they're going to need you and you are not there. And when now this was happening with his father, when he said, I don't understand, I said, it's okay not to understand. I also don't understand. But also remember that verse that you shared with me that time, that you may not understand now what I'm doing, but later I'll understand. So it's really been a journey of grief. And all of them, if we had time, I'll talk how kids grieve differently. My daughter grieved differently. My little one grieved differently. I even started journaling about him because I was worried that he's still young, he may not remember. But also the things he's saying, I will jot it, and you have to find a way, how are you present for them differently in their grief. One of the things for my little one was that he understood that his dad was cremated and we scattered him in Lwandle. So immediately when you're coming back for the funeral, Pretoria was like, so how are we going to see Utata again? And I'm like, what do you mean? Of course we're going to see him. Now I'm still talking about the afterlife. He's like, no, but there's no beach here. So how am I going to see? So where it's like, if he needs to go be physically and at least he knows, but this is where he ended, in his 8-year-old mind at the time. And I remember this one time he just had a total meltdown when Deben inaugurated his brother into the Sharks team. He just said, I had to stop the car in the middle of the highway, go around and just give me a hug. And I said, you miss Utata? He said, yes. I said, I know. I miss him too. I'm sorry. And we had to find a beach like Lisa Semhlanga, and there was a chair there. I said, let's sit on the chair. Talk to Dad, until they get to understand better. I know, okay, this is. So I'm just trying to say it has been quite a difficult journey, but God has been faithful through it all. And we are safely now at a space where I can say my children are okay, and I think I'm okay as well.
Wow. Ntando, this whole testimony is a classroom, even to someone who's watching. It's someone who perhaps who's going through exactly what you've gone through, and they're trying to figure it out. And because of this episode, know someone who walk down this path, and this is how they made it through. But of course, we do have friends, we do have peripheral voices as Tetayo. How did you navigate through those people that are misinformed about izinto, but when you stood your ground and akutsho into yobana azibikhona iimeko ze-breakdown ngoba indanisele makhe ndiye kwikhokhoni yam. Can you take us through that?
Yeah. Oh, I can write a book about that one. So, but without going far, it's just to say, I think I have a genuine love for people, right? I love people, and I always move from the premise that people mean well.
Yes.
They may not necessarily do well, but they don't believe you, but they mean well. It's just that they are human beings, and human beings will bazoput you know. So when things like a marriage, for example, breaks down, the people on the outside, they don't really know what's happening on the inside. And often at times they will hear a particular version of the story and run with it without checking with the other side. What has happened? And also as the person on the other side, you are not interested to go around explaining yourself to say, okay, actually, no, it's not about that, right? Because also you are not fighting with the other person. It's just that there's been a breakdown of a relationship and you still have children here that you must take care of, you don't want to present, you don't want to vilify anybody. But in the process of that, you lose important friendships and important relationships precisely because of that misunderstanding or misinformation or ngokuthi uba umuntu akaka-trained akayazi into uqonda uyatraina ngoku uyascreenshotwa kuxoxwa ngawe. But I think what helps there, what helped me personally, I think maybe I'll mention two things because I don't even want to lie and say during that time it was prayer. I was not praying. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't like uvela uvaleke umlomo xa sewuxakaniseke nyhani ngolife. Umuntu oyaziyo loo nto will know that kuba nzima nothandaza. But I think my friend Olwethu, God introduced a very special woman in my life at that time, Olwethu Gwanya. She came from nowhere. Like Abantu Bautuga that we've only known each other maybe in the last 3 years. It hasn't been long, You know, I'm a person of many friends, okay? I know many people. But when days are dark, that's when you see, in fact, ndinabantu abaninzi, but ndinabantu, kind of thing. Even though when you've always been there for other people and you go all out. You know, because we are strong people. I think when you are also a strong person like myself, always been a strong person there for other people, maybe sometimes people don't know how to be there for you. Like, I think by bidwa, you know, in a way. They think I'm right, you know. So God sent Olotu in my life, I don't know, without Olotu and without giving her credit, like she's God. She's not God. I know ultimately it was God. But at the time, she was the God that God sent in the physical form. Like, literally, she's what helped. I can say now she helped me get through it every day on a daily basis. I'd never seen something like that of someone caring so much for someone. Even when she was overseas in Ireland, we spoke every day. Unjani madlamini, how are you? You know, someone that you can see that is genuinely interested in you as a person. Doesn't matter but she's here for you. She's for you. And that came at a time when I really needed someone for me. Because remember, also when you are married, people know you as a couple. So they are there for you as a collective. But and then others are. And I also felt like, Utawa needed more support. It's okay, my support because anyway, in inverted commas, I think there's about right, the strong. But God sent already because He knew that even the strong people need someone support, as well. And she really played that role. And secondly, I think it's just having that thing, you know, Kisto, when you know who you are and know whose you are, and also know what contribution or what value you have added in that relationship or in society in general. You don't care abanye abantu abathetha bengena context bengayazi bakwenzeka ntoni, because wena ubanentwethi I know the truth and the other person knows the truth and God knows the truth. The rest abathetha bayithetha angendawo zami ngiyicacisa. You understand? But you need to, if you are listening, maybe now you are going through something, just to say, find, I think most importantly, it's in you. You know, the resilience is in you, Kisto. It's not outside. It's just that when life happens, you need to dig deep and find it. And stand on it and remind yourself, who are you? I'm a good person. In fact, I'm a great person. And I've done a lot in terms of impacting society. And more importantly, God loves me. And God loves me unconditionally. And and I'm gonna get through this. Also understanding that it's just a season. There's nothing that is permanent in life. These too shall pass. And lastly, understanding that even if that on a endless energy for everybody, but there's a time that you need to reserve that for yourself when you are going through stuff. You know, and that revelation of give us this day our daily bread. I had heard that all the time, but this part, it came as something new. Like God was saying to me, listen to me. You can't be there for other people now. Now the energy you have, it's like I'm giving you a slice of bread for each day. This slice of bread is for you and your children to survive each day. If you're going to take this slice of bread, pieces, you're going to die. Take this bread, eat it for you and your children. This is the daily energy I give you. Because now you don't even, but God was like saying, I'm going to give you a daily bread, but don't go share this bread with everybody. It's for you and your children until this season passes. And I can safely say the season has passed now. Now I'm able to break my bread again. I'm starting to break my bread again and be there for others, you know, like I used to.
Wow. What an insightful journey. And of course, now we're going to approach the podium where Ntando will be given 60 seconds to address you as the audience, to say if you are going through some challenges in your life, ungatyafi, bega ithemba lakho kuwe. She's a living testimony yalondo. Let's approach the podium.
In these last few seconds that I'm given, I just want to say to you, our viewers at home or wherever you're watching from, you matter. You are important. I know that we live our lives for other people every day, whether it's for our kids, whether it's for our job, whether it's for our families. But I just want to remind you that first and foremost, you matter. You are important. It's time that you live for yourself as well. It's time that you prioritize yourself as well. It's time you prioritize your happiness. Your happiness matters. And I want to encourage you this afternoon that is, if there's anything that is causing you unhappiness, you have every right to demand your happiness. You have every right to live for you, because there's only you that is you. And when you are gone, there's no other you that will be. You are the only you that matters. You need to live your life, because other people are also busy living their lives. And I think last is just to say, don't worry much about what will people think or what will people say. People will always have opinions. The day you realize that their opinions belong to themselves, but your life belongs to you, that's the day of your freedom. That's the day you will start living your true, authentic self. And there's nothing more important than being true and authentic to you. As you've seen me today, I've shared some parts of my story that some may have felt, maybe that was too much. But that's just me. I love to be authentic. I love to be me, because I understand that when I share even those intimate parts of my life, there's someone that is going to help somewhere at home. That's the reason why God allows us to go through these things, so that they can help his people. So be authentic, be true to yourself, be true to your story, and be happy. Do everything that makes you happy. It's time that you are also patient. You know, 1 Corinthians 13 says, love is patient, love is kind. I need you today to be patient with yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself, but also be kind to yourself and to love yourself however that you want to express that love. Thank you.
Ntando, thank you very much for sharing your remarkable journey with us today. Your dedication to public health, HIV and AIDS response, and community development is truly inspiring, and your expertise that shed valuable light on the complexities of addressing this epidemic. Through your work with UNAIDS, Men on a Mission, and other initiatives, you are making a tangible difference in the lives of young people and communities. Your passion for education, healthcare, and community-led responses is contagious, and we are grateful for the time you've taken to share your insights with us. To our audience, thank you for joining us on this insightful journey with Ntando. We hope that her story has inspired you, motivated you, and equipped you with a deeper understanding of the complexities and opportunities in public health. Thank you again, Ntando, for your time, your expertise, and inspiration. And to our audience, thank you for listening. Join us next time on Insightful Journeys for another inspiring conversation. Until then, keep inspired, stay informed, and keep shining your light. Good night.